Frogbit blog.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Frogbit blog podcast, episode 21, The Pest from the West. In this episode, we look at crows and what they knows. What else do we look at? We look at LSD and what it did to me. No, I never took it. I just rhymed. That was all. I put my foot in it here. We look at dairy-free cows. No, dairy-free milk. You know, milk without... Anyway, I'll shut up and get on with it. Welcome.
Frogbit blog. The Frogbit blog.
Corrections and apologies. Well, I'm not going to do any corrections because I'm perfect these days, am I? I never get a thing wrong, okay? And as for apologies, what I've found is that I end up insulting the people that I apologise to. So I'm not going to do any apologies this week. I think I'll just focus on the insulting people. So I'll just do some news. What's been in the news recently? Well, a bit of bad news. Stephen Hawking's died, along with Ken Dodd and Jim Bowen, but I'm going to focus on Stephen Hawking. And by now, he should be ascending on that stairway to heaven, shouldn't he? Well, let's hope the stairway to heaven has a wheelchair ramp, eh? Otherwise, he's a bit fucked, isn't he? Not that he believed in heaven, to be fair. Here's a couple of quotes from Stephen Hawking before he died, obviously.
I regard the brain as a computer which will stop working when its components fail. There is no heaven or afterlife for broken down computers. That is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark.
That's one.
I believe the simplest explanation is there is no God. No one created the universe and no one directs our fate.
Am I sounding like Stephen Hawkins or a Dalek here? Anyway, crack on.
This leads me to the profound realization that there probably is no heaven and no afterlife either. We have this one life to appreciate the grand scheme of the universe.
And I'm going more Dalek, can't I? Focus.
And for that, I am extremely grateful.
Last one.
Remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious, and however difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up.
Well, he's in for a bloody shock if it turns out there is a God after all, isn't there?
Oops, sorry, God, I was wrong. So you did create the universe after all. Dalek again. So if you created the universe 12 billion years ago, what have you been doing since then, you lazy bastard? Spending your time watching people, have you? Watching them undress and have sex and having a poo, stuff like that, you fucking weirdo.
Anyway, sad loss, Stephen, sad loss.
The Frogbit blog.
Well, I don't remember. Well, you should remember. Last week's episode was called The Beast from the East. And I made a joke about the daft's names we were giving weather these days. And I joked, it was bloody hilarious, actually, about what next? The pest from the West. Well, guess what?
Hundreds of schools have been forced to close after heavy snow brought rush hour chaos to roads across northern Wales and England. Forecasters said up to 4 inches of snow would fall in parts of Britain as the pest from the west brought fresh disruption after the beast from the east last week.
Did you hear that? They've actually gone and called it the pest from the west. I'm going to sue them for royalties. I'm suing them to tell you where there's blame, there's claim. Or is it where there's claim, there's blame? Anyway, I want royalties, I do. So, in my series, Aren't Animals Brilliant? I've been looking at a video. It was on Facebook, I think, and it was taken by someone in a car park. I know that's not the most exciting start to it, but they were sat in a car park and they just had the camera out and there was a crust of bread and it looked like the end of a baguette. Are we allowed to still say baguette, or now we're leaving the EU, we've just got to say French stick? Anyway, There was a bit of French stick on the floor in the car park and a crow was eating it. And you saw this little mouse run up and sort of like it saw the crow and zapped back in. And they filmed it a bit further and this crow starts eating the bread and sees the mouse and it actually bit a bit of the bread off and took it over further away from its big bit of bread and left it there for the mouse. And the mouse came and ate the bread. It was like sharing, yeah? Aren't they brilliant? And so I did a bit of research, a bit more research about crows and rooks. They're part of the corvid family, not the corbit, or not the corbin, the corvid family. They're particularly intelligent. Birds make good use of the allotted space for their tiny brains by packing in a lots of neurons, more so than mammals, in fact. In simple experiments, scientists taught the crows, taught the birds how to use a tool that can help them access a piece of food. When offered a selection of objects almost 24 hours later, the raven selected that specific tool again and performed the task to get their treat. Monkeys have not been able to resolve tasks like this. And they found out this is more studies. For instance, crows are warier of new people than ravens are, but conversely are more comfortable with humans that they had interacted before, according to a study in the 2015 journal Behavioural Ecology and Social Biology. The crows round here, they know my face, said McGowan. I've not introduced McGowan, but we'll presume he's an American. While at first the birds living near the lab seemed to dislike McGowan. Oh, for approaching their nest. It's not McGowan talking now, it's the author. I've really messed up here. Anyway, they love him now and he started leaving the birds healthy treats. Oh, it's back to him now. They know my car, they know my walk, they know me 10 miles away from where they've ever encountered me before. They're just amazing that way. In a now well-known study, researchers donned masks and while holding dead taxidermied crows, laid out foods in areas frequented by crows. Almost universally, the crows responded by scolding the people and even alerting other crows in the vicinity. When the researchers returned weeks later wearing the same masks but empty-handed, the crows continued to harass them and were wary of the area for days after. That's quite amazing, isn't it? And yet, animals like that, we still treat them like vermin. God, I hate that word vermin, don't you? It's just a word used to legitimize killing of wild animals, isn't it? Yeah, vermin, horrible vermin. Yes, they even called foxes vermin on Countryfowl the other week, the wankers. So, on to fox hunting news while we're talking of foxes and vermin. Surrey Hunt whipper-in Rob Mardles was arrested on Tuesday for assaulting and spitting on a female hunt sap at the end of a day's illegal hunting. Frustrated that Guildford and North Downs sabs had ruined one of their final meets of the season, Mardles pushed the sab into a ditch and spat on her. She was kept in hospital overnight with an injured back and had to use a wheelchair upon her release. Why isn't that man in prison? The Surrey Union have previous for assaulting sabs. In 2017, Huntmaster Lulu Hutley, really? Someone called Lulu? Godmother to Princess Eugenie, was filmed hitting a sab with her whip. Well, they are royalty. They can do what they want to us peasants, can't they? And also, a guy called Sean Stacey, self-appointed hunt steward, was today sentenced at Northampton Magistrates Court for multiple assaults against hunt saboteurs. And listen to this awful sentence. He got 6 months community order and he has to wear a tag for 4 months and fined £1,010, including compensation to the victims. He was not deemed fit for the community order. They managed to go around assaulting sabs and assaulting people and attending hunts, but all of a sudden he wasn't fit to do the order. So he has to attend 10 sessions to learn empathy. He has stated to the probation service that he will not be attending any hunts, so they're going to send him on an empathy course.
The Frogbit blog.
Now, if you remember, it was probably 10 minutes in, so you're probably asleep by this point, but last episode I was talking about foie gras, cruelty-free foie gras, made from animal cells, part of the movement towards cruelty-free lab-grown meat. And I remember actually just after wondering if there's any attempt to grow lab-grown milk and dairy products and stuff like that, Look, I know it would be better if we all just became vegan, and the work of vegan activists like Joey Carlsborough and all the vegan groups across the world that spend the time educating the public about veganism is great. But it will really help to end animal cruelty much sooner if some people that can't be persuaded to just say no are given an alternative, which will be lab-grown stuff. Anyway, lab-grown milk, I wonder if it's happening. Well, I thought I'd look it up. And this is the story. Ryan Pandya, Perumal Gandhi, there's a good name, and Isha Datta, these three young idealists had hatched their business plan via online chats. No, they weren't interested in producing alternatives to milk such as soy or almond milk. Instead, Perfect Day, that's the name of their company, wanted to use a process called microbial fermentation to produce actual cow's milk, but without any cows at all. Perfect Day's plan was to make milk using the exact dairy proteins cows create, but with designer yeast instead of cows, and in a mere matter of days. No, it actually says in a matter of mere days, but you could say a mere matter of days, couldn't you? In other words, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Well, maybe not free, but certainly far more efficiently and thus far more profitably. In a process similar to how baker's yeast... I'll stop this accent. In a process similar to how baker's yeast produces CO2 to make bread rise and brewer's yeast produces alcohol, Perfect Day's yeast produces actual dairy proteins like casein and whey. Food scientists program the genetic code into the yeast, and that yeast starts pumping out the desired protein. The yeast never makes it into the final product, enabling the final product to be labelled GMO-free. Perfect Day, there's the name of the company, if you remember 2 minutes ago, if you're still awake. Perfect Day has now raised millions of pounds as an attracted talent from some of the world's largest dairy companies. They plan to start by selling dairy proteins as functional ingredients for food manufacturers, with other dairy products far behind. Isn't that great? So, cruelty-free milk and cruelty-free dairy products are on their way. Great, I'd say.
The Frogbit blog.
And I do realise I just said cruelty-free dairy products are on their way. That was way, W-A-Y, but really I meant, I was actually intending to do that pun on purpose, W-H-E-Y. Cruelty-free dairy products are on their way. Brilliant, Frogbit, brilliant.
The Frogbit blog.
Hello from this week's Farming Today. A new bill will be brought before Parliament this year, mandating for the first time measures and targets to preserve and improve the health of the UK's soils, amid growing concern that we are sleepwalking into a crisis of soil fertility that could destroy our ability to feed ourselves. The UN has warned that the world's soils face exhaustion and depletion, with an estimated 60 harvests left before they are too degraded to feed the planet. And a 2014 study in the UK found matters are not much better, estimating 100 harvests remaining. The minister said, "Healthy soil is essential, and there are ways of measuring it, such as the organic matter in the soil. Farmers can be given incentives to improve soil management, such as by crop rotation. It has taken a long time, but I think we have turned the corner on getting soil on the political agenda." However, successive governments have made almost no moves to target soil health, even as intensive farming has been increased. The EU mooted a soils directive for several years, but abandoned it in the face of heavy lobbying, some of it from the Conservative-led coalition.
There you go, Conservative-led coalitions. Again, Conservatives don't care about the environment. Anyway, back to Farmers Weekly. Now I've sad me say.
So, Mr. Farmer, what do you think about being asked to look after your soil by the government?
Soil? What's that?
You know the stuff you grow things in?
All right, is that what they call it? Soil? Soil, bit of a strange word. Sounds a bit like boil and toil. Well, will there be any compensation in it?
We're not sure at this stage. Apparently they will be asking you to rotate your crops.
Rotate my crops? You mean move them in a circular direction? How would I bloody do that then? Oh, maybe a rotavator. Would that do it?
I'm not sure if that's what a rotavator does, Mr. Farmer.
Oh, right. Will pouring lots of expensive chemicals do it? I'm good at that. The man from the chemical company tells me all I need to know about that.
Okay, thank you. Back to the studio. And that's all for this week's Farming Today. Next week we look at how to claim for wolves killing your sheep, even though there's no wolves yet.
The Frogbit blog.
Now, if you remember, last episode I was going on about that We Support Chris Packham Facebook group, so to say that, Facebook group, that We Support Chris Packham, because there was loads of stuff about the snow and field fairs in people's gardens. And anyway, I wrote a blog and I mentioned them in the blog, We Support Chris Packham. And I asked if I could post it on their Facebook page, and they said yes, so I posted it on their Facebook page. It was very kind of them. I got about 5 likes and a couple of comments saying, oh, that was a nice blog. So here's me thinking, oh, there's probably only around 50 people that go on there. I've got about 7 or 8 of them responding to my post. That's not bad, is it? From We Support Chris Packham. And anyway, about an hour later, on my own Facebook page, this photo, or should I say 2 photographs appeared, okay, on my timeline. And the first was a photo of a large snowman with a carrot for a nose in a garden. And there was a fox sat looking at the snowman. And then the second photo was of the fox, which had climbed up the snowman and was in the process of snatching the carrot from the snowman's mouth. And it was a wonderful pair of photographs. So I thought I'd share it with We Support Chris Packham, and also for the sake of the Fox group, to see if anyone else appreciated them. And over the following days, 2 days, there was constant, on my phone, these constant streams of notifications and likes, and XXX likes and XXX commented. And by the end of the second day, I'd got 700 people on the Chris Packham page, and 300 on the Fox group had either commented or liked my post. So that's 1,000 people had liked the post. Where were they all when I want them to read my blog, eh? I thought it was only flipping 20 of them, yeah? And what I realised is that I was a recipient of a phenomenon that had passed me by up to this point, the social media dopamine hit. If you didn't know this already, social media is set up to make you addicted by giving you little dopamine hits every time someone interacts with you. They're purposefully addicted. That's how it works. So you might get a little dopamine hit when you see something you like, then you get another hit when you share it and other people share their appreciation. And all of a sudden, I was receiving 1,000 little dopamine hits, yeah, all over the place. It was like an addictive drug. I was loving it. It was like, help, my drug addict. I think from now on, I'm going to stop posting meaningful articles and podcasts about the universe and animal behaviour and green issues. It's pointless. I realise what I've got to do is spend my time posting cuddly pictures of animals instead. People love it. Forget all the deep, meaningful blogs and podcasts. All people want to see is a cute photo of a fox. We're all drug addicts. I became a drug addict sharing a photo that I didn't even take this photo. I just shared it, the fox and the carrot. So thank you, Mr. Fox. What I'm going to have to do is get a stuffed fox or something and take it around with me and take photographs of me, this stuffed fox. Oh, that's really tasteless, I know, but take it around with me and take loads of photographs. Then people will pay attention to me and I might get some more hits because I'm addicted to it now. I'm addicted to the dopamine hits. I'm a drug addict. Help! And that kind of segues nicely into my regular feature.
Frogbit on drugs!
So, anyway, yes, remember, I'm not promoting the use of drugs. I just think drugs in society are very interesting. Some that are allowed, some that aren't, some that do good, some that do harm. So this week, I'm talking firstly, about LSD. We've come a long way in understanding the effects of LSD, especially as it becomes used more frequently in mainstream research. A study from 2016 used 3 types of imaging to show that LSD causes changes in brain flow, electrical activity, and creates a brain that is much more connected, meaning various brain regions have more communication among them. And this happens more than brains in the placebo group. Placebo group. You've heard them. Yeah, they did some good songs. The paper included striking images that showed brains on LSD ablaze with activity and connection compared to brains without it. And then an international team used a new kind of imaging that uses the literal shape of the brain itself to interpret the brain's activity during LSD. What they found is that on LSD, the brain expands its behavior and connections in ways we didn't know before. It brings our brains right to the edge of chaotic behavior without allowing us to topple over it. The findings also point to potential explanations as to why hallucinogens are helpful in treating conditions like depression and PTSD. Okay, that was the thing, and it's partly because it literally cleanses the doors of our perception. And as we grow up, we filter out more and more of the world around us, and this is partly because we need to, as there's so many millions and millions of sensations that are bombarded with us constantly that we need to filter them out, otherwise we couldn't function. But what the trouble is when it comes about, if we aren't careful, this perception becomes narrower and narrower as we get older and we experience less and less of the world. Now, this filtering is actually called gating. I read a book about it in relation to plants, but it's called gating. Now, I know what you're thinking. Gating does actually sound like the title of a homosexual reggae song.
Alright. Oh, it's a gating. How I feel about you, it's a gating. And I hope you feel it too. Don't leave me waiting. 'Cause I don't know what I'll do. Stop gyrating. 'Cause it's a gating, true and true. I'm contemplating. A gating with me and you, procrastinating is not something I want to do. Oh, it's a gating. Yeah. Alright. Yeah. Alright.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what came over me there. Well done, Frogbit. You've just been racist and homophobic in one song. Well done, you. Now, more drugs. Ketamine. Ketamine has been called the biggest thing to happen to psychiatry for 50 years due to its uniquely rapid and sustained antidepressant effects.
Oh my God.
It improves symptoms in as little as 30 minutes. Makes it sound like Anodin or something, doesn't it? It improves symptoms in as little as 30 minutes compared with weeks or even months for existing antidepressants, and is effective even for roughly 1/3 of patients with so-called treatment-resistant depression. One prominent idea about how it alleviates depression is by promoting the growth of new neural connections. We provide a new angle for people to think about how this drug works, says neuroscientist Hailan Zhu of Zhejiang University in China, leader of the team that conducts both studies. Interesting, huh?
Frogbit on drugs.
Now, last week I was talking about the young lad, not last week, last episode, talking about the young lad, and his name is Alfie Dingley, who has seizures that are helped immensely by cannabis oil, and he had to go over to Holland to get it. He's not allowed to get it in this country. There's a petition on change.org if you want to sign it. Well, now the story has made Parliament. So it's from an article, and here's what it says. Today, veteran MP Paul Flynn's private member's bill that would have paved the way for Alfie Dingley, who has a severe form of epilepsy, and others like him to legally receive a medicinal cannabis they urgently needed, was filibustered by Tory and Labour MPs. I don't know if you know what that means. Filibustering is where they keep talking so they run out of time, okay? Speaking outside Parliament, Newport West MP Paul Flynn and his Welsh Labour colleague Tonia and Todianzile fumed at their own party for letting down those Alfie whose case they had championed in Parliament. Paul Flynn said those who had sabotaged the vote had a heart of stone and voted to find out if the Parliamentary Labour Party had been complicit in talking out the vote. Both MPs apologised to Alfie's family and others needing medicinal cannabis on behalf of their party. But this is where it gets really interesting and really, really seriously suspect. And it's people like Victoria Atkins, okay? Victoria Atkins is the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Crime, Safeguarding and Vulnerability, and her remits including drugs policy, okay? Listen, Victoria Atkins' husband's company is in partnership with GW Pharmaceuticals, a UK biotech firm which is developing Epidiolex, a synthetic drug made from cannabis plants used to treat epilepsy, okay? And she's the one that's arguing against allowing natural cannabis, and her husband was set to profit. This is what she said to the House of Commons. "We are talking about gun-toting criminals who think nothing of shooting each other and the people who carry their drugs for them. What on earth does my honourable friend think their reaction will be to the idea of drugs being regulated? Well, there won't be criminals when, will they, tosser? Does he really think that these awful people are suddenly going to become law-abiding citizens? No, but what they're doing won't be illegal, will it? So they won't be doing that and carrying guns because other people will be able to get the drugs legally. And you and your husband, you are promoting this synthetic cannabis. You don't want real cannabis because your husband and people like you and all these pharmaceutical companies stand to make lots of money out of it. And meanwhile, people like Alfie Dingley are suffering because of arseholes like you. And that really makes me angry. Grr.
The Frogbit blob.
A woman whose husband stands to gain from keeping cannabis illegal so he can work with people trying to create synthetic cannabis. Yeah. Why the fuck do we need synthetic cannabis? What's wrong with the one that's been helping people for thousands of years, the natural one? Could it just be that pharmaceutical drug companies can make money out of licensing a synthetic one? This is wrong on so many levels. And while we're on the subject of cannabis, two more articles. I'm not going to waffle on about it. I didn't know this. I found this week. In 1974, researchers learned that THC, the active chemical in marijuana, shrank or destroyed brain tumours in test mice. But the DEA quickly shut down the study and destroyed its results, which were never replicated until now. The term medical marijuana took on a new dramatic meaning in February 2000 when researchers in Madrid announced that they had destroyed incurable brain tumours in rats by injecting them with THC, the active ingredient of cannabis. The Madrid study marks only the second time that THC has been administered to tumour-bearing animals. The first was the one I just talked about in 1974. In both studies, the THC shrank or destroyed tumours in a majority of the test subjects. The DEA quickly shut down the Virginia study and all further cannabis tumour study, the Virginia study, and they shut down all further cannabis and tumour research, according to Jack Herer, who reports the events in his book. Okay, in 1976, President General Ford put an end to all public cannabis research and granted exclusive rights to major pharmaceutical companies who set out unsuccessfully to develop synthetic forms of THC that would deliver all the medical benefits. And again, pharmaceutical drug companies are some of the biggest donators to political parties, but it's obviously just a coincidence, isn't it, this? It makes me absolutely sick. And more, the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research published a study conducted by researchers from Tel Aviv University and Hebrew University, which showed that a chemical in marijuana known as cannabinoid CBD strengthens bones and accelerates the healing of fractures without causing any psychotropic effects. You don't even have to get off your tits to be cured. Though, yeah, anyway. We found that CBD alone makes bones stronger during healing, enhancing the maturation of the collagenous matrix, which provides the basis for new mineralization of bone tissue. After being treated with CBD, the healed bone will be harder to break in the future. So not only has it been shown to shrink tumours, it heals bones, but it is still banned and a highly regulated substance. Isn't that strange? Why would that be?
Frogbit blog.
Anyway, that will do for this week's articles on
Frogbit on drugs.
Well, that'll do for this week's I keep saying this week, it's not this week, is it? It's this episode. If you remember last episode, I did say I was going to get them lads in to talk about minimalism, but they couldn't make it because they said something like they were out busy on a big shopping spree or something. So they're going to be next episode. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Read the blog, do whatever you want. Just have a nice time and I'll see you soon. Bye!
The Frogbit blog.